Okay, so everybody, welcome to Hauntily Yours, a podcast for the paranormal. My name's DC O'Rourke. I am the host. This segment I call Paranormal Corner. This is where I bring on special guests within the paranormal field to talk about things they've seen, share their stories, their experiences, so on and so forth. Tonight, I have a very special guest. I have Mr. George Lunsford, who is the author of the book series Legends, Myths, Monsters, and Ghosts. And he's also the host of Creepy Tales, the podcast. George, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
How's everything going for you?
Busy.
Busy, yeah. I can certainly imagine. All ready for Christmas?
Oh yeah. We got the grandkids stuff. We're good to go.
Okay. All right. Okay. Perfect. Well, why don't we just go ahead and get down to it? Obviously, you've had some interesting experiences in your life to kind of put you on this path that you're on, devoting so much time to the paranormal. How did you and the paranormal first cross paths, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I guess the first real experience was when my great grandmother passed away. When she died, I was young, of course, and keep the camera right. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I was laying in my bed, and I was asleep, and that night I felt something wake me up. I woke up, and my great grandmother was sitting on my bed. And, it wasn't anything frightening or scary or anything. It was just something unusual. I asked her, I said, "What are you doing?" She said she wanted to tell me goodbye and that she loved me.
Yeah.
And then she just kind of disappeared. And the next morning we found out she had passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I had a similar experience like that myself growing up, where my grandfather passed away, and he came to visit me a couple days after we buried him. It was certainly interesting, but he visited me in a dream, so that was obviously a little different. Yeah. So you're from North Carolina?
Yes, sir.
You are? Okay. Whereabouts?
Asheville.
Asheville, okay, nice area. I've been down that way quite a few times, actually. I'm from Virginia myself,
Okay.
so yeah, a lot of history and great haunts in this area, if you will.
That's for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, North Carolina's got its fair share of history too.
After doing my books, every state does. The one that I've seen had the most was Louisiana, though.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised. Oh, okay, all right. Hey, there you go.
She's kind of spooky too, so.
Yeah, interesting. So I heard through the grapevine that you've actually had a near-death experience, or multiple. You can correct me if I'm wrong here. I was just curious, what was that like, and did you happen to see anything on the other side?
Oh yeah, it was cool. It really was. I was in the hospital with pneumonia. I was in with 104 fever, being watched, had all machines hooked up to me and all this stuff. And late night, early morning, I woke up. And there was people coming through my walls in my room. I could see them, and they were just as clear as day. And I looked over, and there was an older woman standing beside the bed.
Really?
So I sat up in the bed, and she said, "It's okay. It's okay." And it wasn't scary. It was just kind of confusing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So I stood up beside the bed. I was feeling great. I mean, no pain, no nothing. Everything was perfect. And I took a couple of steps forward, and felt weird, so I turned around and looked, and my body was still in the bed, and the clock was stopped.
Yeah.
And all these people were coming in my room. There's probably 8 people in the room besides me, and there was an old lady beside me. And I talked to her, and I got her name, and I talked to the other people and got their names and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked in the corner, and there was somebody in the corner. It was kind of dark. You couldn't see real well, but they had a silhouette, and it looked like wings were on the back. But you couldn't see, but you could see. You know how feathers look in a silhouette.
Sure.
And he raised his arm, and there was this little bitty light dot, and it just grew into this big vortex. And the people started walking into it.
Oh, wow.
And they all went in except the old lady, the angel, I'm assuming, and me. Mm-hmm. And I went to step forward, and she said, no, it's not your time. Lay back down. So I went back over to the bed, and I sat down, and I laid down, and I watched her as she went to the portal. And she smiled, and she stepped in the portal, and it disappeared, and the angel was gone. And I closed my eyes. Next thing I know, I woke up, and there was people standing in my room, and the door was flying open, and there was all kinds of alarms going off. And I looked at one, and I said, "What's going on?" And they all just stopped dead.
Yeah.
And looked at me. And I said, "Who was the old lady's name?" And I give the woman's name, and they all went pale. All the nurses just got pale looking. Other names of the people I'd talked to, and each one of those people had died in the hospital within a couple of days.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I'm sure they were just like, "Whoa, hold the phone here,"
yep.
Trying to wrap their minds around it. But I mean, I hear stories like this, ever so often, and I'm just going, people have these experiences. So, I mean, I think, nurses and, doctors in these hospitals, they come across this stuff time to time. And I think they probably just don't want to acknowledge it.
You're probably right. It freaked them out. I mean, I had people come in asking questions and all kinds of stuff for a while. But that older woman had died in a room right before I got.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
Name, everything. That's been about 30 years, so my memory ain't that good.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I have the unfortunate curse of remembering everything, names and faces. Sometimes I wish I could forget. Yeah. Interesting. So obviously you've had some run-ins with ghosts. That's definitely on the interest list. What else in the paranormal? Because from what I've read, it seems like you're kind of into a little bit of everything. What excites you in the paranormal field?
I like everything. I love the ghost stuff. I love the cryptids. I love it all. UFOs right now is a big thing for me. But I still want to do a Bigfoot hunt. I still want to do a paranormal investigation. I still want to do it all. I'm just finding somebody to go with.
Yeah. I know what you mean. And, I find that now, with this pandemic going on, across the world, I mean, it's particularly hard to do anything fun like this, Yeah. I mean, I'm a ghost tour guide. So, at least I can scratch that itch that I have for paranormal investigation to a degree. But I mean, other than that, like, all the paracons and the, public ghost hunts that I like to go to, pretty much out the window because of COVID, or, they've limited the ticket sales where it's like 10 people, and I'm going, where's the fun?
Oh yeah.
But yeah. These are the times we live in, though, unfortunately.
Yeah. You just gotta do what you got. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm curious because you mentioned Bigfoot. Do you think Bigfoot is real?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe personally, this is my
Mm-hmm.
theory, is
Uh-huh.
that when the Indians come over across the bridge into the North America,
Uh-huh.
they ran into, and in all their legends talk about the white giants that were here.
Mm-hmm.
The white giant, they were giants, and they were cannibals. So the Indians came over in such a massive number that they attacked the cannibals, the giants, and
Okay.
to kill them, to stop them from eating them. Well, they
Mm-hmm.
scattered out. The giants did. Now there's giants mentioned all over the world, and ever uh, theology and everything. They all talk about giants, and it's in everybody's legends and everybody's history, but nobody
Sure.
wants to acknowledge it.
Yep.
So I think when the Indians come across into America, that when the giants hid to get away from them, they hid in the Mammoth Caves and other caves and like that around the United States. And they stayed hidden for a long time because there's no mention for a while, say
Mm-hmm.
100, 200 years about them. And then they
Mm-hmm.
start about running into the wild man, or the Cherokee talk about the Sukalo.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just that's what it is. It's the old giants that have adapted to that type of life away from everybody else. And that's why I
Interesting.
think they have their own language, and I think they bury their dead because that's what they used to do.
Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about some like crazy gorilla-like humanoid necessarily running
No,
around in the wild.
now you may have that down at the Skunk Ape in Florida because through the years, Florida's had hurricanes and everything else down there, and all those little illegal zoos and those
Oh yeah.
other zoos and else animals have escaped during that time. And I
Mm-hmm.
do believe that, like the skunk ape, is an escaped chimpanzee or maybe even a silverback that are living out in the Everglades. They could easily live out there with no problem.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Huh. I actually, I was in preparation for this interview with you. I was kind of going through my brain thinking, okay, have I ever had a Bigfoot experience? And I'm thinking, I recalled this one point when I was a kid. Now, this happened in Virginia, and I wouldn't call it a Bigfoot sighting per se, but I remember I was walking through the woods behind my mom's house, which, I like to do. I like to go exploring. And I remember it was this one day I was walking open field and I was about to head into the woods. And all of a sudden, I guess I scared it. This huge, like gorilla-like creature came running out of the woods and took off running in the opposite direction. And I mean, this thing was probably about 4 feet tall, very, very bulky, like a gorilla. I mean, it was very hairy, and I never saw the front of it. All I saw was the back, and it just took off running. And I was thinking, okay, whoa, what did I just see here? Was that Bigfoot? I remember, and I went home and told my mom, and she was like, "You're crazy. You made that up." And I was like, "Why would I make something like this up?" But you know how moms can be.
That's pretty cool, though. You've got me beat. I can't think I've ever had a Bigfoot sighting. I really want to.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like I hear Bigfoot sightings from all across the United States, but I feel like I hear an awful lot coming from your neck of the woods in North Carolina. I mean, is that a thing, or am I speculating here?
No, there's been a lot of sightings here recently.
Mm-hmm.
I usually get a list of people who get sightings. They'll send me information about their sighting, or I'll just catch it in the newspaper or whatever. But there's been a bunch here lately towards the end of Halo.
Interesting. I wonder why now. What's the cause for the increase in sightings all of a sudden?
Well, you've got people encroaching in their area now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You go down in Halo, you go through the gorge and up the other side. They're building everywhere in the woods.
Oh yeah.
So more people, more sightings.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Looks like
You
there's
see,
no finger.
oh, right, yeah, yeah. Uh, so tell me about dogmen. They're a little new to me. I started hearing about them very recently, and I heard that you're familiar with them.
A
Fill me
little
in.
bit. I've been doing a little studying on them.
Hmm.
I still can't decide whether they're a werewolf or if it's something totally different
Yeah.
because it seems like it's still like a werewolf. So, a werewolf, it's a person that turns into a wolf and then it's turned back to a person. Well, the dogmen
Hmm.
don't seem to do that. The dogmen seem to be there. And there's several different variations, but the most common one seems to look like a werewolf.
Yeah.
And they're tall, or they're big like Bigfoot and stocky,
Hmm.
but they're not as big.
Hmm.
And the biggest one I've heard of as far as dogman goes was like 7'5", maybe 8.
Wow.
And Bigfoot goes all the way up to 12 that we know of.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that.
So my money's still on Bigfoot.
Right. But and I've looked at pictures of dogmen on the internet, and I'm kind of like thinking along the same lines as you. Werewolf, yeah, because that's essentially what it looks like. It makes me think of some of these like earlier werewolf movies from the 80s, like Brotherhood of the Wolf and things like
Oh,
that,
yeah.
where you've got the wolves with the really big pointy ears. But I'm curious, okay, if it's not a werewolf and it is in fact a dog man, where do they come from and how do they fit into this paranormal hierarchy with all these other cryptids?
That's why I haven't figured out yet. I mean, it has
Yeah.
to be something cursed, like a
Yeah.
skinwalker. A
Okay. Yeah.
skinwalker was a cursed shaman.
Hmm.
So unless it's something to do like that, I'm not real sure. But I mean, we're starting to have sightings here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had. I got 2 people told me that they heard them, and one
Hmm.
seen them over towards one of the lakes here close.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
I don't know. I'm curious. I'm trying to get a let me come out there and take a look at it.
Yeah. Take a camera. Never know what you're going to catch.
And my pistol, so
And your pistol.
we don't take
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, just in the off chance it is a werewolf and not a dog man, would you take silver bullets?
Nah, a couple of
Nah.
shots that I can get away.
Very
I'm an
nice.
emoji guy, so I ain't worried about it too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So moving right along here, you touched on UFOs briefly, saying that you wanted to see one, or have you seen one?
I have seen one real good sighting. I was in the
Okay.
Navy.
Uh-huh.
We were out in the middle of the Atlantic. There was nothing around on radar,
Hmm.
nothing on sonar, nothing. And this thing came up. I don't know if it came out of the water or what, but it come up about, it looked like maybe 10, 20 feet off the water at about 8 miles away. And it stayed there and it would move back and forth. Like it
Oh,
was
wow.
almost like it was looking for something, but it was just doing this back and forth. And we watched it for probably maybe 5 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden that thing shot straight up straight up, just as fast as a blink.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
gone. And we never had anything that could do that because I was in the Navy and part of my job was when I was on watch was to watch for enemy aircraft.
Yeah.
So I had to know what all the aircraft was all over the world.
Hmm.
And ain't nobody had nothing like that.
So what's your theory about UFOs? Are they aliens, or is it a government, military experiment? What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, there's so many the things it could be.
Hmm.
I believe that, yeah, there are some from other places because,
Hmm.
mean, look at the expanse of space. There's no way in the world that we're the only puny little planet that's going to have life.
Oh yeah, of course.
What, 6 million Earth-like planets?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the dates of the planets, Earth's pretty young compared to what else is out there.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, you got a planet that's 1 billion years older than we are. It only makes sense that it'd be more advanced.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I kind of lean towards the parallel universe theory.
Ah, okay.
I also think that there could be some crossover.
It wouldn't surprise me. It certainly wouldn't surprise me.
Nothing would surprise me this year.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
In my front yard, I would just go out with give them a beer and keep it going.
Yep. Yeah, me personally, I've never seen a UFO. Yeah, but I've read all the classic stuff about, I think it was like after World War II, how the United States government smuggled in Nazi scientists after the war and had them creating UFOs, trying to militarize. What's that?
That's how we got to the moon.
Yeah.
We Nazi scientists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
White things for a while and everything.
Mm-hmm. But we don't want to talk about that, though.
I'm kind of a history buff too, so.
Oh yeah. I mean, I am as well. But it's like I feel like you start talking about Nazis, and it's just like people's interest level just goes out the window unless they're fascinated, with that period of history. Yeah, because Nazis are in the news all the time nowadays, and for the wrong reasons.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah. Now, tell me more about your book or your books. How did all this come about? What inspires you? Was it just your various experiences over your life, or all this research that you've been accruing, or a little bit of both?
Well, I'm kind of a strange guy. Of course, I know you can't figure that out, buddy. But I was acting for 15 years. I was an actor on the side, just doing different movies and commercials and all this other stuff, and music videos and all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy called me and wanted me to write a script for him.
Okay.
So I wrote a script and I sent it to him, and we become friends, and he's a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
So I just decided I wanted to be a writer.
Oh, there you go.
I found something interested me and started writing.
Yeah. Huh. Sometimes that's all it takes, I feel like. It's very simple.
That's the same way I got into acting. I just decided I wanted to be an actor and started acting.
Hey, there you go. Believe it or not, I actually am an actor also. I've been in films and TV shows and commercials, the whole 9 yards. I actually used to do a lot of work at Scream Gem Studios down in Wilmington. Yeah. I
went towards Atlanta and stuff.
Okay, yeah. It seems like all of my actor friends gravitate down that way nowadays. They're saying it's becoming the Hollywood of the East Coast. There's a lot of film work going in and out of the area all the time. So, yeah.
I did a movie over by close to you. It's down in Madison, North Carolina, right there above Winston-Salem. With it was with Zach Galifianakis and Owen Wilson.
Oh, really? What was it called?
I don't remember now. It was such a flop. It was flopping.
Yeah. Huh. I'll have to go and see if I can look that up. Now, let's see, while we're talking about the books, so each of your books cover different areas of the United States. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So break it down for me. Starting with book one.
Well, volume 1 covers the southern United States. It goes from Carolina over to Texas and down to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I've also got 5 of the Cherokee legends in that book.
Oh, interesting.
Then I did the Northern edition is from Virginia North, Ohio East.
Mm-hmm.
And it also includes Washington, D.C. And 5 of the stories in there were actually made into movies.
Oh,
I didn't make them, but I mean they're the basis for movies like
yeah.
Jaws, Annabelle, Exorcist, The Conjuring, and The Haunting of Connecticut. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't remember if I may have put the Amityville Horror in there too. I don't remember.
Oh, interesting.
Cool
So,
story.
yeah. So, do you know any Virginia paranormal stories off the top of your head?
Oh no, I've got so much running in my head.
Yeah.
And the third book went from Kentucky to Kansas and everything north of that.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah.
And now I'm working on, and also had 5 of the Sioux tribe tales in that one.
Oh, wow.
Now I'm working on.
Oh, you're working on another?
Yeah, I got the 4th one to be released in the spring.
Oh, okay. And what's that going to entail?
It does the West, including
Okay.
and Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got 5 Inuit tribe tales in it.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I am definitely going to check these out as soon as I have some free time on my hands. So I will look forward to seeing what you've uncovered in book 4 once I get to it. Yeah, absolutely. What all goes into doing research for your books? I mean,
well, what I do is I pull up the myths and legends of a certain area, like say, I'll pull up all the ones there, and I'll pick out say 4, maybe 5 that I like.
Okay.
Study each one of those, and I'll try to find every variation of it I can. And then I take all the variations and I combine them into one single story.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's just kind of like thread line it almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was getting this mental image of you like in the archive section of a library, like going through like newspaper clippings and old articles talking about, oh, this person back in 1972 saw a UFO flying above Nevada. Yeah, I know. Nowadays, I miss those days though, going to the archives and like scrolling through microfilm and looking at all these articles going way back when, uncovering the stuff that, for the most part has been forgotten about. Because
that's one point about these books, because I don't want people to miss the stories about their areas. I mean, when I was young, I'm 53 years old, get ready to turn 54. When I was young, our grandparents and our parents would tell us the stories about things around here, like Helen's Bridge or Chicken Alley or the Brown Mountain Lights. Okay. We heard these stories growing up, and as kids, we went and investigated them. Well, the kids don't have that luxury no more. It doesn't seem like the grandparents sit and tell them stories like they used to with us, because now you've got the internet, you've got 4 billion channels on TV and phones and all that. And it's getting lost, and I don't want to get lost.
Yeah. I totally understand where you're coming from. That's why I became a ghost storyteller. The reason why I jumped into starting a podcast, because I want to keep these stories alive, not only the stories that I grew up with that I heard from my grandparents and my uncle, and things I read by authors such as yourself, but other stories that people just kind of told me or I heard in passing, and that's why I strive so hard to keep at this and digging up stories from all over the place, because they deserve to be kept alive. It's interesting. My girlfriend's grandmother actually used to write for our hometown newspaper, or my hometown newspaper, writing ghost stories. her and her dad, and she said other old timers would sit around in this haunted patch of woods called Old House Woods, which was about 10 minutes from my house. And they sit around and swap yarns. And she said she recalled her dad would always tell ghost stories. And it seemed like he was always spinning the best yarn because he kept everybody's attention. And I absolutely love stuff like this, getting these little tidbits of information, because it almost like it puts you there in the moment, seeing, all these elderly people sitting around in a patch of haunted woods, swapping stories with each other. And it's why we're here today, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, you just lose so much. I mean, there's nothing like sitting around a campfire and telling these stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
I love them. They got some of the best ones. Like in South Carolina, there's some really, really good ones, because I grew up running back and forth between Asheville and Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we used to hear stories from like the Gullas and stuff down there that would tell you stories in their native language and stuff from West Africa. Wow. And they would tell you all the stories from West Africa if you knew any of them. And we went down so much, we made friends with everybody down there. So
yeah. That's great. I have to ask, and I hope you don't mind me asking. So I've actually been contemplating writing my own book on, my own, I guess, a montage of ghost stories that I've been collecting over the years from various places. Any advice?
Do it.
Do it. I like that.
That's the only thing that you just sit down. The best thing to do, I'll be honest with you, that I've found it's the best way to do it. Sit down and get all your thoughts out on paper. Don't worry about spelling or sentence structure. Do your first draft. Just get everything on there.
Yeah.
That way, when you go back and look at it, that's when you start tweaking it up and making it look pretty and all that other stuff. But get your thoughts down. That's the most important thing.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure you've got some killer ones if you've been doing the haunted guide tours and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I guess you got some good ones.
Yeah, I mean, I've been chasing the paranormal since I was 13 years old. When my grandfather died. So I mean, I've got some stories.
Well, I tell you what, you get written, you let me know. I'll get the book.
Okay, all right, yeah. I'll have to keep in touch and get your input. See what you think. Yeah.
But don't talk yourself out of it now. I know a lot of people, they want to write books, but they'll talk themselves out of it, or they'll say, I don't really have the education to do it. It's not going to sound right. Just do it.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
If I didn't do what I wanted to do when I did it, I wouldn't have done anything. I mean, I wanted to join the Navy. I joined the Navy. I wanted to make explosives. I went to work making explosives. I wanted to act. I went and act. I wanted to ride. I went and ride. I mean,
there you go. Yeah. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just seize the bull by the horns. Yeah. I totally understand that. It's interesting for me, though, because I've been thinking about this a while, and I've had two different conversations with psychic mediums over the past probably 3 or 4 months. And two separate women on two separate occasions, and they both asked me, have you been thinking about writing a book? And I said, whoa, okay. How did you pick up on that? And they were like, it's all over you. You've actually got a few books in you. Do it.
Hey, I think you did a great job.
Yeah. Needless to say, it kind of took me back a few steps, and I just thought, okay, if they're sensing this, I guess I need to do it and stop thinking about it.
You did a great job, I'm sure. I have no doubt at all.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I've always been told that I'm a natural born storyteller, and that's what this is all about for me, keeping these stories alive. So it's just a matter of putting them on paper.
That's all an author is a storyteller.
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
And I'm full of stories, so
Yeah. Right.
I'll say stories and be nice.
Yeah, there you go. So moving on from books, let's talk podcasts. I've got a podcast. I hear you have a podcast too.
I do. I have to say, doing the podcast a little different. I did a radio show for a while, and I had 50,000 listeners in 190 countries.
Wow.
But the podcast is a lot more competitive than the radio was.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. It's just a little bit, I'm a lot more laid back and just talkative on the podcast than I was the radio show.
Yeah.
I do my podcast as if I'm talking to you. That's how I do my podcast.
Sure. Yeah. I know what you mean. I try to do the same thing with my podcast. I address, everybody who's listening as my friend, and I try to use the same tonality that I would in a general everyday conversation, even like when I'm doing, my tours out on the streets, I don't treat people as just some guy and some girl who bought a ticket to hear me talk about history. I get their names, and I make them feel like they're part of it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's what it should be. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. So,
check it out.
Yeah. So your podcast is called Creepy Tales?
Yep, Creepy Tales, the podcast. Same as my radio show was.
Okay, interesting. So how was all this born? Did somebody approach you, or did you just say, hey, I want to do a podcast?
I just decided I want to do a podcast.
There you go. I had that feeling, George. I had that feeling. Yeah.
I'm kind of that way,
There's nothing wrong with that. I appreciate it. Yeah. So how long have you been doing the podcast for?
A little over a year.
A little over a year. Okay. All right. Been plugging away at it.
Yeah. Well, I just did my Christmas one, and I remember doing last year's Christmas. So it's been a year. This one about Hans Trap.
Oh, okay. Clue me in here. What's
Hans
this?
Trap is one of the demons.
Oh, okay.
The Christmas Scarecrow.
Yes.
And it's actually based off a real person.
And
Interesting. Not a good person.
Not a good person. Yeah, I'm guessing not by the sound of it. It sounds pretty sinister.
Well, yeah, in real life he was a knight, and he owned a couple of castles, and he got into a dispute with an abbot. You know what it is, right?
What was that?
An abbot.
Oh, an abbot, yes.
Well, he got into a dispute with an abbot, and they had issues between them. And the abbot went to the Pope and had him excommunicated.
Oh, yeah, that's not good.
No, and they took everything away from him. He was rich, took everything. And the short of it is, he dressed up as a scarecrow and would attack people, kids. Put them up and eat them.
Oh,
so he's called the Christmas Scarecrow.
Ew. Okay. That's not spooky at all.
No. But there's a bunch of different of the Christmas demons, and I've talked about several of them. Of course, everybody knows about Krampus.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was making me think of Krampus just a smidge. I certain elements of that story. I was like, yeah.
Well, there's some pretty rough ones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine.
Christmas Hag, the Yule Cat, the what is it? It's the zombie horse. A couple other ones. I can't remember all of them right offhand.
Yeah. There are just so many great stories out there that need to be told that nobody seems to touch. Yeah, so I totally respect what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I grew up with these stories called it was like I think it was a 3-part series called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which were basically like these old campfire stories that somebody took and rewrote and tried to make them more spooky. Yeah, I absolutely love stuff like this. Like there was this one story about a farmer who creates this scarecrow to keep the crows out of his field and off his crops and stuff, and he ends up calling the scarecrow Harold, and realizes over time that Harold's just this disgusting old scarecrow that he doesn't really care for. So one day he brings him in the garage, and starts taking him apart and stuff, and then realizes that Harold has come to life. And long story short, by the end of this, another farmer gets involved, and another scarecrow, and the scarecrows are both alive. Kill one of the farmers and skin him alive.
I love it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just like, where does stuff like this come from? It really makes you wonder.
Myself.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I tell you, interesting. Any future projects in the works?
Yeah, I'm working on a project possibly with Netflix as a producer.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna be starting after this spring. I'll be starting a new series. I'll be starting a new book. It'll be sci-fi.
Okay.
I grew up reading sci-fi and horror.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
I got to do sci-fi. I love sci-fi.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm trying to get everything worked out with either Tor.com or Forge, which is they're together, and try to get them to publish my books.
Okay. So tell me about this Netflix project. How did that fall into your lap? I'm dying to know.
My business partner, he wants me to work. I got some people together about some UFO stuff. Can't really say much about it yet, but it's going to involve UFOs and
okay, yeah,
stuff like it's. If everything works out, I'll let you know more.
Okay, yeah, I trust me. I understand how all this stuff works. You can't say anything until after it's done and in the can, and I understand. Yeah, totally.
I'm trying to get something to get my own series on there of my stories. So
yeah, hey, there you go. That would be super cool. Yeah,
I'm working on it.
Right. Work in progress. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm always working on something. It's a bad habit of mine.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes I shake my head at all the different things I have going at the same time, and I'm like, Denny, leave yourself some room to breathe, man. Breathe.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. All right, so I've got a fun question for you, and I ask everybody this because
okay.
I love hearing the answers. If you could have a conversation with a spirit of your choosing, who would it be and why?
John Wayne.
John Wayne. Okay. Really?
What? I grew up watching all John Wayne's movies, and what he stood for kind of made him my hero, but not really. I always admired his patriotism, and if you ever watch his movies and listen to the interviews, he never, ever treated the Indians bad. He was a
Sure.
big advocate for Indians.
Yeah.
And, I'm married. My wife is Cherokee, so.
Oh wow. Okay.
I kind of like
Super
them
cool.
for some reason. I don't know why,
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to
Yeah.
have a conversation with him, find out about his movies, his
Mhm.
life, how it was working with Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
I'm an
Mhm.
old, so I like all the old actors more.
Oh yeah, no, I'm right there with you. As a matter of fact, I was just watching an old Cary Grant movie the other night called Charade. Audrey Hepburn was in it. Yeah, yeah. I so John Wayne. I touching on this. He was a very fascinating guy. Um, I covered ghost stories of the Alamo back at the beginning of my podcast, and little did I know, but when I was in the midst of my research, I discovered that John Wayne, as it would turn out, was obsessed with the Alamo. He started doing research for his movie. He was there looking at blueprints. He was talking to historians. I mean, he was just there literally absorbing as much information about this place as he could possibly get. And I believe he spent like $1 million of his own money to recreate an exact replica of the Alamo, which I thought was super cool. But they say that John Wayne's ghost has been seen on more than one occasion at the Alamo, and I believe it's the Menger Hotel next door. So I'd be curious to go visit someday and see if I could bump into him.
Oh yeah, me too. That's awesome. I've heard
Yeah,
stories about that, but I've never been able to confirm any of it.
yeah. I think it's a lot of it is probably just kind of these old yarns that are passed down by people over the years, and it makes me think of this thing that my former storytelling mentor used to say. She used to say, "You haven't told a story until you've told it 50,000 times."
Yep.
And whenever she first started telling me that, and I thought that's crazy. What is that? What does that mean? I realized there's actually something to it, because I could tell a story right now to you. You could turn around and tell it to your wife. Your wife could tell it to the grandchildren. The grandchildren could tell it to whomever. And before you know it, it's traveled all over the place. And every time it's retold, it's told a little differently.
Yep. Yeah. I found
Yeah.
that true, except for if you look. So the legends everybody else tells, like say the Beast of Bray Row. There's been 7 million stories told about the same thing, with all variations. But
Yeah.
if you look at the Cherokee legends, or the Sioux tribe legends, or any of the Indian legends, there's no variation. They tell their stories word for word exactly the same as it's passed down to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one thing I did notice big time, is that they always kept their stories more pure than anybody else did. When they pass them down, they pass them down exactly the same.
Yeah. I believe that. Yeah. I mean, why it's like you stop and you think about their culture and the overall meaning behind some of these stories. I mean, you have to tell it exactly the same to get that intention across that was originally put forth. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I get it. Now I'm thinking about the Vikings. They had these bards and these guys that would take these oral stories that were passed around by word of mouth and retell them. And I mean, yeah, sometimes these guys were probably exaggerating just a tad bit. I won't mention Beowulf, but for the most part, I think they were being retold the exact way they were told to these guys. They were sitting down, like memorizing them to a certain extent. Yeah.
Yeah. There may have been some variations depending on how much mead they had at the time. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I won't knock a good cup of mead, but hey.
Never had
Yeah.
any mead. Had a lot of beer, but not a lot of mead.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Well, we've been having quite the fun conversation here, George. Before we wrap things up, do you have any social media pages where people who watch the episode later on can turn around and follow your work and find out where they can buy your books and things like that?
Yeah, if they want to go to my website, that'd be wonderful. It's
Okay.
author George Lunsford
Mm-hmm.
.x10host.com.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
And
I'll.
from there, you can pick everything out about me.
Hey, there we go. I'll be sure to put this up on my social media pages as well, just to send some more people your way and get them checking out, your books and your podcast and all that fun stuff.
Well, I greatly appreciate it, and I'll spread yours out too.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. I very much appreciate that. I feel like we all have to kind of stick together in this field.
That I agree with 100%. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've definitely enjoyed this interview. It's been fun.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad to hear that. I've had a lot of fun chatting with you. Yeah.
And don't hold back on that book. Jump on it.
Yeah, I know. I need to. Actually, I'll share a fun tidbit with you. People ask me this sometimes. So I grew up with a book series called The Ghosts of Tidewater, written by a gentleman named L.B. Taylor Jr., who used to work for Langley here in Virginia. He was doing some stuff with NASA for many, many years.
Yeah.
He somehow got into ghosts. And before you know it, he had written over 22 books. And I grew... Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love reading this stuff as a kid. I mean, anytime I wanted a good ghost story, I knew I could go look at this guy's stuff. I could learn the history of a haunted place and get like 2 or 3, maybe 4 stories out of it. Really cool. But he used to do a lot of like autograph sessions, meet and greets, which I'm sure you probably do.
I love it.
Yeah. It's always great meeting fans. But he used to sign his books. He passed away a couple years ago. He used to sign his books, Hauntingly Yours, L.B. Taylor. And, when I sat down to create this podcast, that popped into my head. I started thinking about, my paranormal career, if you will. And I thought of this guy's signature in his book. And I went, Hauntingly Yours. I like it because, I very much believe that my podcast is just as much for the spirits and the other entities within the paranormal as it is for my listeners. And it's like, and I'm getting to the point now where I'm actually like starting to kind of dabble in spirit communication, talking with spirits on the other side, using spirit boxes and things like that. So I feel like I'm even more of a ghost storyteller. So I am Hauntingly Yours.
Hey, I love it. I think it's great, man.
Yeah. It seemed fitting, so I took it and ran with it.
Hey, it's a good way to remember the guy. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and in case you were curious, if I could choose a spirit, any spirit at all, I should have told you this. My spirit would be Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
Yeah. I just think, he was such a brilliant mind, a guy that was well ahead of his time. And I think it would be really fascinating to sit down and have a conversation with him and pick his brain, learn about things from the past and see how you can apply it to today, and maybe even find out if he's aware of the current climate with things, that are going on in this day and age, and have him weigh in.
Oh, I would say probably is. He may be rolling around a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Thomas
Yeah.
Jefferson was awesome. He's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah,
Him and
yeah. Me too.
and all of them.
Yeah. It's funny. One night I do paranormal investigation also. In case you didn't guess that at all, I I I was at the governor's palace in Colonial Williamsburg, in Williamsburg, Virginia, where I do ghost tours.
Yeah.
And I was doing a little bit of investigating outside the palace walls, and I turned on my spirit box, and I had a few different spirits talking to me, and they all wanted to know who I was. So I pretended to be somebody from the time period. I said, "Oh, I'm a gardener. I'm here looking for work. I was wondering if Governor Jefferson is available." And they told me, "Hold on." And I thought, wait, are they actually going to look for the spirit of Thomas Jefferson? I said, shut the front door. But me and the couple of people I had with, we were sitting here waiting for the response. And then you heard this, it was like this chatter in the background. And a guy asked, "Is he looking for me?" And the other guy said, "Yes." The guy came forward. He said, "Hi." And I said, "Hi, are you Thomas Jefferson?" He said, "Yes. What can I do for you?" And I went, "Oh." And I shut off the spirit box and I looked at my friends and I said, "Okay, was that actually Thomas Jefferson?" And I hung up on him essentially, or
why did you turn it off?
Yeah, right. I was just like, I was so blown away. I just said, did Thomas Jefferson actually just make contact with me, or was it another spirit playing a sick joke on me? Like, oh, hey, let's talk to the alive guy and make him think I'm Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, it's unreal.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the things they tell me, it's like it'll blow me right out of the water, and then sometimes I'm going, okay, hold on, you're messing with me. Somebody actually has a sense of humor.
That's awesome, man. I might get new ones. Those are cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the spirit box is fun, but you have to kind of take it all with a grain of salt, because it's a sweep radio. It's scanning radio frequencies. You hear not only you're hearing this, but you can get some serious radio traffic that comes through, and your brain will tell you you're hearing these things that you're dying to hear. But ever so often, I mean, there's no denying what you're hearing. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I actually, last weekend, I was doing an investigation. I was sitting out front of an 18th century tavern, and it was probably close to midnight, and I was running the spirit box right there on the sidewalk. And I said, "Hello." And then somebody said, "Hello." And I said, "Oh, someone's here." And they said, "You're different." And I thought, in a good way or a bad way? Like, yeah, I'm the guy sitting out here in the middle of nowhere talking to ghosts. But what really got me was they started answering all my questions, and I asked if there were any female spirits there, and they said yes. And I said, "Are there any female spirits who can't move on?" And the guy said, "Yeah, I've got a couple." And I went, wow, I mean, it came through crystal clear. And then he turned around and asked me if I could help them. And I thought, huh. So, I said a brief release prayer that I knew. And I said, I hope it helps. I hope they can move on. And he said, yeah, it helps. And I said, well, okay, good night to you. I'm going to take my leave from here. And he wished me a good night. And I thought, wow. I mean, yeah. It was wild. One way of putting it.
when you do your book,
Mm-hmm.
besides telling just the stories you want to tell,
Mm-hmm.
tell your stories too. Tell the stories like that. What happened to you? Like
Oh
in
yeah,
between the stories. Like, tell
yeah.
a story, then tell one of your experiences, then tell another story, then an experience. I
Mm-hmm.
think you'll
Oh yeah,
you'll pull people in a lot better like that because you
yeah.
got some pretty wild experiences from the sound of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I could probably sit here another hour and tell you all of them. I
Hey,
mean,
I listen. I like it.
yeah. I have seen some strange stuff in my life. I tell you what. I'll tell you my very first true experience with the paranormal. I'm not talking about the dream with my grandfather visiting me, but my first up close personal encounter, and then we'll wrap this up. Um,
Okay.
so when I was 19, I was working at this cafe in my hometown, and I was a waiter. Me and a buddy, we were closing out the place one night, and he said, "Hey, do you want to go ghost hunting?" And I'm thinking, ghost hunting? He was like, yeah, like the guys in the TV shows, they go into haunted places and stuff. And me, I had been, having these strange dreams with ghosts visiting me and, reading all these ghost stories, from LB Taylor and stuff and visiting some of these places. And now I'm thinking, oh, I have the opportunity to go do this up close and personal. Yeah, of course. Let's go. Well, before I know it, he and I hopped in the car and he told me he was taking me out to Old House Woods, which I mentioned to you not too terribly long ago. And it's this 60-acre patch of haunted woods. And I remember reading about this in L.B. Taylor's first book, The Ghosts of Tidewater. Old House Woods is supposedly haunted by pirates and British redcoats, headless animals. There's a storm woman who's clad in white that rises up above the trees and warns fishermen to come in off the shore, to the shore when there's a storm. You get the idea.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic stories. And I'm thinking, oh wow, I'm going to this place. This is incredible. Okay. Well, we show up and he stops at this dirt road that leads into the middle of the woods. And I mean, the woods just seem like they go on forever. It's nothing but pine trees and marshland, and it's pitch black.
Lord.
Yeah. And I'm like, how do we get in? He said, there, road. And I thought, oh gosh. So we start driving through the woods, and I'm like, I got that heavy feeling, the hair started raising up on the back of my neck almost. And I'm looking around in the dark, looking out, the car windows, thinking, where is this guy taking me? We get all the way to the end of the road, and he turns around and he starts coming back out because there was a no trespassing sign. I told him, hey, I'm not trespassing. He said, no, don't worry about it. There are houses over there. We're not going near the houses. This is public. Well, we started coming back out, and all of a sudden he just stops the car right in the middle of the road, turns it off, turns out the lights. I said, hey, what are you doing? He said, shh, shut up, listen. And I started listening, and I was looking around, and I remember I leaned in and I started looking out the front windshield, and I could see what looked like shadow people moving back and forth across the car, just walking like it was absolutely normal. Then I started seeing shadow animals, and I looked at him. He said, I know. He got out the car, and I went, okay. So I got out the car, followed him. We moved a few feet away from the car, and he told me he was going to attempt astral projection. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So he gets down on the ground, gets into this meditative yoga-like position, and he says, I need you to keep an eye on the woods. Let me know if you see anything. And he closes his eyes and he starts humming. And I'm thinking, okay, he did explain what astral projection was, but I wrote it off. I said, you have fun with that. And I'm standing here. We're in the middle of the woods, and I remember standing on this dirt road, looking up into the sky. The moon's full, is very bright, shining down on us, and I'm looking around at all these pine trees. I hear frogs, croaking off in the distance. I hear the pine trees sway and clack together every time the wind blows. It's the beginning of every good ghost story. Well, I'm standing here waiting to see if anything's going to happen, listening to this guy on the ground. And after about 15 minutes of this, I hear what sounds like somebody walking through the woods. And my eyes dart immediately to the general direction. And I'm looking, it's just several feet away. And it's pretty dark for the most part, but I'm looking and I can clearly see what looks like somebody coming through the woods. I see branches moving, foliage getting tossed around. And then I get that heavy feeling again that something isn't right, that something's coming. And this person moves all the way through the woods and getting closer and closer to my general vicinity. And I'm watching with bated breath, not taking my eyes off the spot. And then what I see instead come out is this giant cloud of vapor, is black. It was like this black cloud. It just came out of the woods, and I thought, wait a second, I just saw somebody moving through there, and now I'm seeing this. But this cloud of vapor comes out of the woods and floats right above the road, just a few feet away from me.
Oh, wow.
And I'm leaning in, looking at it, and I'm thinking, okay, are you actually seeing this right now? But it suddenly dissipates, and what's now standing there is a shadow figure. It's a man that's at least 6 feet tall. He's got on a black tricorn hat, and he's got on a long flowing overcoat. And he's standing there with his arms out like he's ready to fight. And all I could think was, nope, I'm done. I'm not messing with this. I yelled at my friend on the ground, and I told him, hey, whoa, wake up, wake up, wake up. We got something. And I started running for the car. I've never seen anything like this in my life. It was something out of a horror movie, really. Yeah. But I get to the car, I rip open the door, I jump in the back seat, and I look out the back windshield, and here comes my buddy running at the car faster than he's ever run in his life. And right as he gets to the back of the car, all of a sudden, this shadow man grabs him and throws him into the back of the car. He had been chasing him the entire way, apparently. My friend was screaming his head off, and now he's in a fight for his life. And I'm watching this shadow man that I can't see, and my friend struggling back and forth, and my friend, he's screaming, Denny, help me. I'm thinking, what do you want me to do? I don't know how to help you, man. And finally, all I see is a punch, and he breaks free. He comes running around the car, hops in. I mean, he's breathing so hard, I think he's about to pass out. But he gets in, he starts up the car, and we take off. I mean, he drove out of there, 0 to 60 seconds. 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Incredibly fast. But I remember I needed to know more. There was that part of me that was like, okay, this can't be it. I turn and I look back, and the shadow man is running at the car full steam ahead. He's keeping up with the car too. He's keeping up with the car, and I'm going, whoa. But the scary part about it, he was glowing with this blue color. And, what I thought was, okay, he somehow absorbed the light of the moon. That's the best way I can put it, because he was illuminated. And yeah. I could clearly see a guy that looked like a pirate. But he's running after the car. And then I guess he gave up and realized it was a lost cause, because he stopped.
They could probably go so far anyway.
Yeah. And is it cursed? I don't know. It's hard to say. But he stopped, and then 6 more guys showed up behind him, dressed the same. tricorn hat, long flowing overcoats, and they were all glowing, illuminated with that same blue color.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Hey, Old House Woods, Diggs, Virginia. Yeah, it's crazy, crazy, but I mean, it without a doubt put me officially on the path that I'm on now. In terms of investigating the paranormal and tracking down stories and retelling my own experiences.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. See,
yeah.
like what would do it. I mean, that's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm. And the crazy part about it is I've actually had another experience in those woods, which is very, very similar to that one. But I can tell you that later. we, we can wrap this up. I don't want to take up too much more of your time here. So let me just say, George, it was a pleasure.
Just give me a call.
Yeah, right. I'm sure we could do this for quite some time.
I love hearing the stories. So
Yeah, yeah,
to me, it's awesome. So I that's awesome.
yeah,
That's all I can say.
yeah. Oh, well, fantastic. George, thank you so much for dropping by and having a chat with me. Hauntily Yours, a podcast for the paranormal. If you get a chance, take a listen. Let me know what you think. Guys and gals who have tuned in and will tune in, Mr. George Lunsford, author, show host. Check him out. I will be posting his social media links, or his website rather, in some show notes on the Facebook page. So you guys, please check it out. Check out his work. Buy a copy of his book. Buy 2, buy 3 copies of his books. I'm sure it's good stuff, and I will definitely weigh in on that as soon as I get a hold of a copy.
Well, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it, and I enjoyed it very much. Now I look forward to your book.
I will definitely let you know when that time comes. But for now, I'm going to sign off. George, it was a pleasure. Guys and friends, I'm DC O'Rourke. I am and will remain, much like the spirits, hauntingly yours.
See you, man.
I'll see you.